On the distant world of Nathara, two alien tribes had fought for hundreds of years. The Valyrians, known for their calm wisdom and pale silver skin, and the Nathari, a fiery race with dark glowing eyes, never shared peace. The air of their world was heavy with smoke and lightning, and their people had forgotten what kindness looked like. But one day when war reached its worst, a strange visitor fell from the sky, a human soldier named Captain Ryan Cole. Ryan had not come to conquer or to fight. His ship was pulled out of orbit by a magnetic storm and crashed near the center of the battlefield. When he woke up, he found himself surrounded by two armies ready to kill each other. He did not understand their language at first, but he understood one thing. Both sides were about to destroy everything. A giant energy reactor at the center of the valley was damaged, and if it exploded, it would wipe out both tribes completely. Even though he was only one man and had no orders to follow, Ryan ran toward the unstable reactor. The aliens from both sides shouted at him, thinking he had lost his mind. Sparks flew, the air burned, and the machine began to scream like thunder. He removed his gloves and reached inside the glowing heart of the reactor. The radiation burned his hands, but he kept going. Every move was a fight against pain, but he never stopped. With a final pull, he disconnected the core and fell backward as the light dimmed. Silence filled the battlefield. Thousands of eyes, both Valyrian and Nathari, stared at the human who had just saved them all. The ground was covered in ash, yet a single man stood breathing heavily, his face covered in dirt and sweat. Someone whispered, "He did it." Another voice added, "A human saved us." Soon the whispers turned into chants. The two sides, enemies for generations, began to lower their weapons. When Ryan woke up later, he found himself inside a tall crystal hall. The walls shimmered like ice, and alien guards stood at attention. His wounds were covered in silver cloth. Before him sat the High Council, leaders from both tribes. They had not shared the same room for over 3 centuries, but now they sat together because of him. The oldest of them, a Valyrian elder with eyes like cold glass, spoke softly. "Human, your courage has brought peace between us for the first time in memory. We owe you a debt that cannot be measured." Ryan did not know what to say. He looked around the grand hall, filled with faces that once wanted each other dead. "I didn't do it for a reward," he said quietly. "I just didn't want anyone else to die." But the council insisted. In their culture, a hero must never leave empty-handed. They believed refusing a reward could insult the spirits of honor, so they decided to give him something special, something that would link both tribes forever. They would offer him companionship with one of their sacred daughters, a living symbol of peace between their worlds. The announcement sent a ripple through the gathering. The crowd murmured as two women stepped forward from opposite sides of the hall. One was Sarai, the Valyrian healer who had treated Ryan's burns after the explosion. She had eyes that looked like the frozen sea and spoke with a calm musical tone. The other was Karen, a Nathari scout with fire-red markings across her shoulders and a proud, fearless stare. She had fought near him that day and had seen him risk his life without hesitation. Both women stood silently before him, dressed in ceremonial robes that shone in the blue light. The elder raised his staff and said, "Human, by the law of both tribes, you may choose one to stand beside you. She will be your companion and the bridge between our peoples. You may only choose one." Ryan looked at the two alien women. They were different in every way, one gentle as water, the other fierce as flame, yet both carried the same sadness in their eyes. He remembered how they had both helped the wounded after the battle, how they cared for strangers from the other side despite old hate. The crowd waited for his choice, breathless and silent. Ryan could feel every eye on him, but his heart was calm. For him, it was never about beauty, rank, or favor. It was about kindness, and he saw that same light in both of them. At last, he stepped forward. The hall's echo grew softer. He looked at Sarai and Karen one by one. Then he turned to the council and said in a voice that carried through the hall, "I cannot choose between them. Both deserve peace. Both deserve a life free of hate." Gasps filled the chamber. The leaders looked shocked, and the crowd began to murmur again. In all of Nathara's history, no one had ever defied such a sacred custom. The elder frowned deeply. "You would take both?" he asked, as if the idea were impossible. Ryan nodded slowly. "If I must be a symbol of unity," he said, "then let it begin with them both. You said you wanted peace. Then let this be real peace." For a moment there was silence, and the kind of silence that decides the future of a world. Then one of the guards bowed his head. Another followed. Even Sarai and Karen looked at each other in disbelief, then back at the human who had just changed everything again. And so, on that strange night under Nathara's twin moons, a single human made a choice no alien had ever dared to make. Not for power, not for reward, but for something pure. It was the beginning of a story that would shake two worlds and make the name Ryan Cole known among the stars. The great hall of Nathara was filled with tension after Ryan Cole's words. The alien elders sat frozen, unsure how to respond to the human who had just broken a 1,000-year-old rule. The air shimmered with soft blue light from the energy crystals in the ceiling, and all eyes stayed fixed on the man who had saved their world. Two alien women stood beside him, Sarai, the calm healer, and Karen, the fierce scout, each from a tribe that once hated the other. Ryan stood quietly, his expression steady. He had said what his heart believed, not what the world expected. "I cannot choose one," he had told them. His voice still echoed softly through the chamber. "They both deserve peace," the elders whispered among themselves. Some called it disrespect, others called it destiny. The Valyrian elder tapped his staff on the floor, sending out a soft pulse of light. "Human," he said slowly, "you speak with a bold heart, but our laws are ancient. No man has ever chosen to. Such a thing cannot stand." Ryan bowed his head slightly, not out of fear, but respect. "Then maybe your laws need to see the world the way I do," he said quietly. "Because peace is not about taking sides. It's about bringing people together." His words carried through the air like a calm wind before a storm. The crowd murmured again, but now their tones were mixed. Curiosity, confusion, maybe even admiration. Some aliens from both tribes nodded slightly, their eyes thoughtful. Sarai took a small step forward. Her voice was soft, almost musical. "He speaks from truth," she said. "This man saved both our tribes without asking who was friend or foe. Shouldn't his reward match the heart that united us?" Karen folded her arms, her fire-marked skin glowing faintly under the light. She looked at the elders with sharp eyes. "He's not taking us like trophies," she said boldly. "He's showing you that our world doesn't have to stay divided." The elders fell silent. The leader of the Nathari Council, an old warrior with a scar across his jaw, finally stood. "Words are easy," he said, his tone heavy, "but choices shape the world. If you truly wish to take both, you must prove that your heart can hold more than one flame without burning." Ryan nodded. "Then tell me how." The old warrior looked at the other leaders. They whispered for a long time, their alien voices soft but firm, blending in tones that sounded like wind through glass. At last they turned back to him. The elder spoke. "There is a way, but it is not a simple path. To prove your heart, you must take both women to the Starspire Mountains, the place where our ancestors wrote the first peace oath. If the mountains accept your unity, you will return together. If not, the bond will fail and the old law will stand." The room grew silent again. Sarai and Karen exchanged glances. The Starspire Mountains were not just distant, they were dangerous. No one had reached the summit in generations. The storms there were said to tear ships apart, and strange creatures guarded the old ruins. Ryan looked at both of them and smiled faintly. "If peace needs proof, then we'll bring it back together." The council agreed, setting the time of departure for dawn. The human, the healer, and the warrior would travel together, 3 hearts walking toward one impossible goal. That night, Ryan stood outside the Crystal Palace, looking at Nathara's twin moons. The air was cool and smelled faintly of metal and rain. He thought about what the elders had said, about how every step he took might be judged by thousands. He was just one man on an alien world, yet somehow his choice had become the center of their fate. Sarai joined him quietly, her silver eyes reflecting the moons. "Do you ever regret saving us?" she asked softly. Ryan shook his head. "Never. Saving lives is never the wrong choice." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that held both sadness and hope. "You don't understand how strange you are to us, human. You fight not for victory, but for hearts." A few steps away, Karen stood leaning against a pillar, watching them both. Her tone was rough but honest. "He's strange to everyone," she said, "but maybe that's what we needed." Ryan looked at them both. "We're going to face something dangerous tomorrow," he said. "If either of you wants to stay." Karen interrupted him sharply. "Don't insult us," she said. "You didn't hesitate to walk into fire to save us. We won't hesitate to walk into a storm for you." Sarai nodded quietly beside her. Our worlds divided us long ago, but perhaps this journey can heal more than the past. Ryan smiled a little, feeling the warmth of trust forming between them. In that moment, under the alien moons, they stopped being symbols of two nations. They were simply three souls who believed in something better. When morning came, the city gathered to watch them depart. The gates of the capital opened, and a bright sandstorm rolled across the horizon. The people watched as the human and the two alien women stepped into the wildlands beyond. The old laws of Nathara trembled that day, for something new had begun, something no one could name, but everyone could feel. And as the gates closed behind them, the council elder whispered to himself, "Perhaps this human carries not just courage, but the seed of a new world." The journey to the Starspire Mountains began under the rising light of Nathara's twin suns. Ryan Cole walked ahead with his small pack, scanning the dusty horizon, while Sarai and Karen followed close behind. The land stretched endlessly, covered in strange glowing rocks and tall crystal trees that sang softly when the wind passed through. It was beautiful, but the beauty hid danger. The path was long, and no one had dared to cross it for many years. Their ship could take them only part of the way because the storms around the Starspire region twisted the air and broke machines apart. From that point onward, they had to walk. Ryan didn't mind. He had crossed worse places on Earth. But for Sarai and Karen, the journey was heavy with meaning. They had grown up hearing that the mountains would destroy anyone who wasn't pure of heart. The first night, they built a small camp near the glowing river of Serath. Sarai sat quietly, her pale skin shining under the blue light. She used a small energy crystal to heat water for them to drink. Karen sat on a rock, cleaning her blade, her fiery markings glowing faintly in the dark. Ryan watched them both and said, "You two grew up as enemies, didn't you?" Karen gave a short laugh. "More than enemies. My people were told the Valyrians were liars and cowards." Sarai smiled softly. "And my people were told the Nathari were beasts who knew only war." Ryan looked at the fire and said, "Strange. Where I come from, people tell stories like that too. But stories change when you meet the person behind them." For a long moment, no one spoke. The soft hum of the river filled the air. Then Sarai said, "You risked your life for both of us, Ryan. That's something even our gods never did." "Why?" Ryan looked at her, then at Karen. "Because life is the same everywhere. Doesn't matter the color, the shape, or the world. Everyone deserves a chance to live without fear." Karen stopped sharpening her blade. "You speak like you've lost something," she said quietly. He gave a small smile. "I've lost a lot. But I've also learned that loss teaches you what's truly worth protecting." The fire flickered between them, and for the first time, both women began to see the human not just as a savior, but as someone carrying scars of his own. The next days were hard. They crossed dry valleys and climbed through sharp cliffs where the wind screamed like a living creature. Sometimes glowing beasts with crystal horns followed them from a distance, their eyes reflecting the light of the suns. Karen was always ready to fight, but Ryan stopped her each time. "They're just curious," he said. "We don't need to harm them." One afternoon, a storm of plasma rolled over the horizon. The sky turned red and bolts of light tore across the air. They ran for cover, but the wind was too strong. Their small shelter was ripped apart. Sarai stumbled, falling to the ground, her leg cut by a sharp rock. Without thinking, Ryan lifted her and carried her toward the shadow of a tall ridge. Karen followed close, covering them from the storm with her cloak made of energy fiber. Inside the narrow cave, they waited as the storm roared outside. Ryan gently cleaned Sarai's wound with water from his pack. She winced but didn't pull away. "You always run toward danger," she whispered. He smiled. "Someone has to make sure we reach those mountains." Karen leaned against the cave wall, watching them. "You're a strange one, human. Back in my tribe, no man would carry another's burden, but you carry both of ours." Ryan looked at her seriously. "Because you're not burdens. You're the reason this journey means something." Karen turned her face away, but her expression softened. Sarai looked between them and said quietly, "Maybe that's why the council sent us. Not to test you, but to test us." The storm lasted through the night. When it finally passed, the three of them stepped outside to find the land washed clean by the glowing rain. The sky shimmered with colors like melted glass. The mountains now seemed closer, their silver peaks shining under the light. As they walked again, Karen began to speak more openly. She told Ryan about her childhood, how she learned to fight when she was only 6 and how she once dreamed of seeing peace. Sarai shared how she was trained as a healer and how she secretly studied the old songs that spoke of unity. Ryan listened carefully, never judging, never interrupting. He told them about Earth, about oceans that moved forever, about forests that breathed, about humans who fought but always rebuilt. Both women listened like children hearing a bedtime story. On the fifth night, they reached a high ridge overlooking the valley of the Star Spire. The air was thin and glowing with mist. Below them lay the ruins of the first Peace Temple, half buried in crystal dust. Sarai whispered, "No one has seen this place for centuries." Karen nodded slowly. "If we make it through this, the whole world will change." Ryan looked at the shining path that led to the summit and said, "Then let's make sure we do." They stood together on the edge of the world, 3 souls from 3 different places, ready to climb a mountain that no one had conquered for generations. None of them knew what waited above, but one thing had become clear. The longer they walked together, the less it mattered who came from which tribe or which world. The climb toward the Starspire Mountains grew harder with every step. The air was thin and the ground cracked under their boots. The wind howled like a living spirit, carrying dust and bits of glowing crystal. Ryan led the way, his eyes fixed on the silver peaks above. Sarai followed with slow, careful steps, her legs still weak from the cut she had taken during the storm. Karen walked beside her, always ready to catch her if she stumbled. They were 3 travelers from different worlds, but now they moved like one. Days turned into nights, and the nights were cold. The moons of Nathara lit the way, and the strange lights in the sky looked like rivers flowing through space. The higher they climbed, the more the air seemed alive with energy. Sometimes the ground hummed beneath them, as if the mountains themselves were whispering old secrets. One morning, as they crossed a narrow bridge made of crystal roots, the ground began to shake. From the mist below came a deep rumbling growl. Ryan looked down and saw large shapes moving in the fog. "Something's coming," he warned. Out of the mist rose creatures like giant lizards, their bodies made of half flesh and half stone. Their eyes glowed red and their breath shimmered with heat. Karen pulled out her blade instantly, and Sarai gripped her staff that pulsed with soft blue light. But Ryan stepped forward before they could attack. "Wait," he said calmly. "They're not attacking yet." The creatures circled them, growling low. Ryan slowly took off his glove and placed his hand on the glowing bridge. The mountain's hum grew stronger. The creatures stopped and tilted their heads, watching him. Sarai and Karen held their breath. Ryan closed his eyes. He spoke softly, not in words, but in feeling. "We're not here to harm," he whispered. The glow beneath his hand spread along the bridge like ripples in water. The creatures lowered their heads, then slowly sank back into the mist. Karen stared at him in disbelief. "You just made beasts bow to you," she said. Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe they just understood what peace feels like." Sarai looked at him with quiet wonder. "You speak with your heart," she said softly. "That's something no one on this planet knows how to do anymore." They continued the climb, more careful now. By evening, they reached a wide plateau surrounded by ancient stone pillars. Strange symbols glowed faintly on their surfaces. It was said that this place was where the first peace oath was written, a promise between the Valyrians and Nathari, long before war returned. Sarai knelt and brushed away dust from one of the carvings. "These words," she whispered, "they talk about unity through shared pain. It says the mountain remembers only those who climb together." Karen frowned. "Then maybe that's what the council meant by testing us." Ryan looked around the plateau. The symbols began to glow brighter as night fell, forming a circle of light around them. The mountain itself seemed to awaken. A voice deep and ancient filled the air, not heard with ears but felt in their hearts. 3 walk as one. But oh, only those with truth may reach the peak. The light expanded, forming a path leading higher into the mist. Sarai shivered. "It's judging us," she whispered. Ryan nodded. "Then let it. We've come this far because we believe in something real." They followed the glowing path. Each step felt heavier, as if the mountain tested their strength and will. Sarai stumbled once, and Karen caught her arm. Ryan took Sarai's other hand, steadying her. The moment their hands joined, the light beneath them flared brighter. Karen smiled faintly. "Looks like the mountain approves." But as they climbed higher, the air grew colder. A wall of wind burst from above, knocking Ryan to one knee. Sarai cried out as her healing crystal shattered in her hand. Karen pulled her forward, shouting over the storm, "Don't stop!" The peak is close. Ryan stood, his jacket torn, his skin bleeding from the wind's sharp bite. Keep going, he yelled. We finish this together. Step by step, they pushed forward. The path turned narrow, forcing them to walk side by side, arms locked. Lightning flashed around them, and the world became a blur of silver and blue. Finally, they reached the top. The storm stopped as suddenly as it began. A calm silence covered the peak. In the center stood an ancient crystal arch glowing with soft white light. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Sarai touched the arch gently. This is the heart of the star spire, she whispered. Ryan looked at both of them. Then let's finish what we started. The three of them stood before the arch, holding hands. The light spread from their joined palms, wrapping around them like a warm wind. For a moment they could see visions, memories of their people fighting, burning cities, lost children, endless sorrow. But then those visions changed. They saw laughter, unity, and the faces of people walking side by side. The voice returned, softer now. Peace is not the choice of one. It is the courage of many. The light faded and the wind grew still. The arch glowed brighter than ever before, and 3 new symbols appeared on its surface, one for each of them. Karen looked at it in awe. It accepted us, she said, Sarai's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in centuries, it accepted anyone. Ryan stood between them, smiling. Then we've proven it. The heart can hold more than one flame. It felt like victory. It felt like awakening. Sarai stood beside Ryan, her soft blue eyes glowing faintly in the sunlight. Do you feel that? She whispered. The air, it's alive. It feels like the mountain is breathing with us. Ryan nodded slowly. Maybe it is. Maybe this place was waiting for someone to remind it that peace still exists. Karen laughed quietly, a rare sound coming from her. You talk like a priest now, human. But I agree. It feels like the world is listening. She walked closer to the edge and looked down at the clouds swirling below them. All my life I was told only one tribe could rule. That strength means standing alone. But you... She turned to face Ryan. You prove strength means holding others up. Ryan smiled faintly. I didn't prove anything alone. You both carried me when I would have fallen. Sarai looked at Karen and smiled softly, and I healed her when she nearly lost her arm during that climb. Karen chuckled. And you cried when I said thank you. Sarai blushed slightly, but Ryan only laughed. Seems like the mountain really did bring us together, he said. They spent the day exploring the summit. The air shimmered with energy, and strange glowing vines grew along the crystal walls. In the center stood the peace arch, now shining brighter than ever. When Ryan placed his hand on it again, the light spread out in all directions, forming a thin beam that shot toward the sky. Sarai gasped. It's sending a signal. Ryan stepped back. Maybe it's calling the world to witness this moment. Far below, across Nethara, people saw the beam in the sky. In the Valyrian cities and the Nethari villages, everyone stopped what they were doing. The beam was white and pure, reaching into the clouds. The elders who had doubted Ryan looked up in awe. The star spire had awakened, something that hadn't happened since the first peace oath ages ago. Back on the mountain, Karen placed her hand on the arch beside Ryan's. The beam grew stronger. Looks like it needs all 3 of us, she said. Sarai joined them, touching the arch too. The light surrounded them, forming a soft sphere. Within that light, they saw visions again, not of war this time, but of a future. They saw Valyrian children playing with Nethari children. They saw cities built together, their symbols carved side by side. They saw laughter, trade, and friendship. Sarai's voice broke softly. It's showing us what could be, Ryan whispered. Then let's make it real. The light faded slowly and the beam vanished into the sky. The air around them felt warmer, softer, almost peaceful. The mountain had accepted their unity. It was no longer a legend, it was truth. They began their descent after resting for the night. The path down was calm, the storms gone as if the world itself had changed. As they walked, they noticed new flowers blooming between the rocks, glowing white petals that had never existed before. Sarai knelt beside one and smiled. The mountain is healing, she said quietly. It's like it's growing new life. Karen looked around, amazed. If this is what peace looks like, I never want to see war again. Ryan nodded. Then we'll make sure no one does. The journey back was easier. When they reached the lower valleys, they found that people from both tribes were already traveling toward the star spire. They came in groups carrying flags of both colors, silver and red, walking side by side. Some had tears in their eyes. The news had spread fast. The signal from the mountain had reached every corner of their world. When Ryan, Sarai, and Karen entered the city, crowds gathered to greet them. Children threw petals made of crystal dust, and the people bowed deeply. The High Council stood at the palace steps, waiting. The Valyrian elder who once doubted Ryan now looked at him with respect. "You have done what no one else could," the elder said slowly. "The Starspire has awakened. The beam of peace touched every heart on Nethara. You have proven that unity is possible." Ryan shook his head. "Not me, us, we did it together." Sarai stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "Let this be the last time our people stand apart." Karen crossed her arms but smiled faintly. "If anyone tries to start another war, they'll have to deal with me first." The crowd laughed softly. Even the elders smiled. The tension that had once filled every corner of the hall was gone, replaced by something lighter. Hope. That night, the city glowed brighter than ever before. Lights filled the skies as both tribes celebrated together for the first time in history. Music echoed across the valley and people danced under the twin moons. Ryan stood on the balcony watching. Sarai joined him, her soft silver robe fluttering in the breeze. "You changed our world," she said quietly. Ryan looked out at the stars. "No," he said. "You both did. I just reminded you what was already inside you." Karen appeared beside them, holding 2 cups of glowing drink. "To peace," she said, handing one to Ryan and the other to Sarai. They raised their cups together, the moons reflecting in their eyes. "To peace," Ryan repeated. In that moment, the world of Nethara felt new again. The wars, the pain, the division, all of it began to fade into memory. The human who once fell from the sky had not just survived, he had given them a future. As the music played below, Ryan looked at the 2 alien women beside him and thought quietly, maybe this is what it means to be human, not to conquer, but to heal. The peace celebrations in Nethara lasted for many days. Songs filled the air and the twin moons reflected in every lake and crystal window. For the first time in history, the Valyrians and Nethari shared the same streets without fear. Children played together and traders from both tribes opened stalls side by side. The world that once burned with war now glowed with unity. But peace never comes without challenges. Deep inside the city's old towers, some of the older council members whispered among themselves. They had grown up in an age of division and power. They feared what this new unity would bring. "The human changes too much," one elder said. "He makes the people forget who we are." Another replied, "If he keeps both women beside him, it will break every law we ever had." While the people celebrated, those words spread quietly through the capital. Some still believed the old ways were sacred and that no one should change them, not even a hero. Ryan Cole didn't know about the whispers at first. He spent his days helping rebuild the damaged parts of the city, and his nights walking through the gardens with Sarai and Karen. The 3 of them had grown closer than ever. They laughed, shared stories, and planned ways to teach both tribes to work together. Sarai dreamed of opening a great school for healers of both races. Karen wanted to train young scouts to protect peace instead of fight wars. Ryan encouraged them both, saying, "This world will change because of you 2. I only showed the path, you'll make it last." One evening, while the city slept, a message arrived for Ryan. The High Council requested his presence at sunrise. The tone of the message was formal and cold. Sarai frowned when she read it. "Something feels wrong," she said softly. Karen crossed her arms. "If they plan to question him again, they'll have to face me." Ryan smiled faintly, but he could feel the unease growing. "Let's not jump to war again," he said gently. "If there's doubt, we'll face it with truth." At sunrise, they walked to the Grand Hall together. The place where Ryan was once honored now felt heavy with silence. The council members stood in 2 lines, their faces unreadable. The old Valyrian elder raised his staff. "Captain Ryan Cole," he said, "you have done great things for our world. But peace cannot exist without law. You defied the sacred tradition when you chose both women. Some among us believe your act brings imbalance." Ryan looked calm. "And yet your people live without fear now. The mountains accepted us. Doesn't that mean something?" Another elder, a Nethari with a deep scar, shook his head. "The mountain speaks for the gods, but laws speak for the people. Our customs cannot be ignored. You must choose again or face exile from our lands." A shocked silence filled the hall. Sarai and Karen stepped forward instantly, standing beside Ryan. "If he goes," Sarai said firmly, "then I go too." Karen raised her chin. "And so will I. We climbed the mountain together. We will not let the council divide us now." The elders looked uneasy. Whispers filled the room as guards entered, unsure whether to act. But before anyone could speak, something unexpected happened. The doors of the grand hall opened and hundreds of citizens poured in. Men, women, and children from both tribes filled the space, their voices echoing through the hall. One young boy shouted, "He saved us all!" Another cried, "He gave us peace!" The crowd knelt together, their heads bowed. "We will not go back to old ways," they said as one. "We stand with him." The elders were silent, stunned. The voices of the people drowned out their authority. Even the guards lowered their weapons and bowed their heads. The hall that once held division now trembled with unity. Ryan stood still, his eyes wide. He had not planned any of this. He looked at Sarai and Karen, both of whom were smiling through tears. "You see?" Sarai whispered. "The mountain wasn't just testing us, it was testing them." Karen nodded. "The people have already chosen." The oldest elder finally lowered his staff. His voice trembled as he said, "Then let it be known across Nethera. From this day no one shall be forced to choose between love and peace. Let our laws change as our hearts have changed." A roar of joy filled the hall. The people rose to their feet, cheering. Ryan looked around, amazed by the power of what had just happened. The same place that once questioned his worth now echoed with his name, Ryan Cole, the bridge between worlds. That night the city glowed again, brighter than before. Lanterns floated in the sky, drifting upward like small stars. The people called it the Night of Renewal. Ryan stood on the palace steps with Sarai and Karen, watching the lights rise. Sarai whispered, "It's beautiful." For the first time the stars looked closer. Ryan smiled. Maybe they're watching us too. Karen looked at the sky and said, "You think your Earth can see this?" Ryan laughed quietly. "Maybe not. But if they could, I hope they'd understand that peace isn't won by strength. It's kept by hearts like yours." As the lights drifted higher, a gentle wind moved through the streets, carrying the laughter of two races who had finally learned to live as one. The whispers of doubt had faded, replaced by the sound of a new beginning. And in that quiet moment, under the twin moons of Nethera, Ryan realized something he had never understood before. The gift he was given, the choice between two lives, two hearts, was never about reward. It was about showing an entire world what humanity truly meant. He looked at Sarai and Karen, who stood on either side of him, and said softly, "This is what forever looks like." Many years passed after the Night of Renewal. The world of Nethera was no longer the same place it once was. The sky was clearer, the cities brighter, and the people kinder. The once divided tribes now lived together under one banner. Children born after the Great Peace no longer knew the meaning of hate. They only knew the stories of the man who fell from the stars and brought unity to their world. Captain Ryan Cole, the human who changed everything. Ryan lived a quiet life in the city of Alien, the capital of the new united Nethera. The people called him the Ambassador of Hearts. He didn't like titles, but he accepted them with a smile because they reminded him that his journey had meant something. Sarai and Karen lived with him, each playing a different role in the new world they built. Sarai became the head of the Healing Council, teaching both tribes how to save lives instead of taking them. Karen became the chief of the Peace Guard, a protector of unity who trained others to defend peace without violence. Every morning, Ryan walked through the crystal gardens outside their home. The flowers there had petals that shimmered like soft firelight. They were called starspire blooms, the first plants to grow after the mountain awakened. It was said they only grew in the presence of harmony. When Ryan touched them, they glowed brighter as if they remembered him. One morning, while he watched the twin suns rise, Sarai joined him. Her hair glimmered like silver silk and her eyes still held that calm, peaceful shine. "You never stop waking up early," she said softly. Ryan smiled. "Old habits. On Earth, we used to say the world looks kinder at sunrise." Sarai tilted her head. "And does it?" He looked at her and nodded. "It does when I see you." She smiled faintly, her cheeks warm with color. "Karen will call you a poet again." As if she heard her name, Karen appeared from behind the garden wall. her cloak flowing behind her. "He is a poet," she said with a grin. "But I'll let him have that. It's better than when he pretends to be serious." The three of them laughed together, their bond as strong as ever. Though the years had changed them, the closeness between them never faded. That same day, Ryan was invited to the Grand Assembly, where leaders from both races gathered. The hall that once held angry arguments was now filled with shared voices and laughter. A large symbol of two joined circles hung behind the council seats, one red for the Nethari, one silver for the Valyrians. At their intersection was a small white star representing humanity. When Ryan entered, the crowd stood and applauded. The sound echoed through the chamber. He lifted his hand slightly, asking them to sit. "You don't need to thank me," he said gently. "The world changed because you chose to believe it could." A young counselor stood and asked, "Captain Cole, what do humans call a world that finds peace?" Ryan thought for a moment before answering. "Home," he said simply. There was silence for a heartbeat, and then the room filled with quiet smiles. Later, he returned to the garden where Sarai and Karen were waiting. Sarai held a small glowing stone in her hands, a communication crystal that connected to the mountain itself. "The Star Spire sent a new signal," she said. The light pulsed 3 times and then went quiet. "It hasn't done that in years." Ryan frowned softly. 3 pulses. He touched the stone, and for a moment he felt warmth travel through his skin. The mountain seemed to whisper to him just as it had all those years ago. 3 walk as one. He smiled, understanding. "It's reminding us that it still remembers." Karen folded her arms but smiled. "Even the mountain can't forget you," Ryan chuckled. "It's not me it remembers. It remembers the choice, the moment we proved peace was worth believing in." That evening, as the suns began to set, the 3 of them went to the highest tower in the city. From there, they could see the entire valley, villages glowing under the golden light, people walking freely, laughter echoing across the land. It was the world they had dreamed of on the mountain peak. Sarai placed her hand on Ryan's arm. "You gave them this world," she said softly. Ryan shook his head. "No, we all did. I just gave them a reason to hope." Karen leaned against the rail, her eyes bright with the reflection of the twin moons rising. "Do you ever miss your Earth?" He smiled quietly. "Sometimes. But Earth is just a place. Home is where people believe in you. I think I found my home here." The 3 stood together as the stars appeared in the sky. The mountain far away glowed faintly, sending a soft beam of light upward once more. Not as a warning this time, but as a promise. A promise that unity would live on even when those who began it were gone. Years later, songs were written about them. Children would sit under the Star Spire trees and listen to stories about the human who chose both hearts and saved a world. They would speak his name with pride, not as a legend, but as a reminder of what it means to be kind. On one quiet night, Ryan sat again in the garden, older now, his hair touched with silver. Sarai and Karen sat beside him, their hands joined in his. The stars shone brighter than ever, and the wind carried the same soft hum from the mountain. Ryan looked at them both and said softly, "If humanity ever comes here again, I hope they see this world and know that peace is possible." Sarai smiled. "They will," Karen nodded, "because you showed them how." And under the twin moons of Nethara, surrounded by the glowing flowers of peace, the man from Earth, the healer, and the warrior watched the stars together. Their story had become eternal, not about choosing between 2 hearts, but about uniting them.